Hello, I'm Dr. Bruce Teague, Director of the Center for Entrepreneurship at Eastern Washington University. Welcome to Startup Stories, where we explore the entrepreneurial journey with Spokane area entrepreneurs. Today, we're going to focus on the role of purpose in guiding the startup and growth of small companies into large companies. I'm joined today by Monica Simeon, co-founder of Sister Sky. Welcome to the show, Monica.
Thank you for having me.
The story of Sister Sky is one of my favorites from our region. So you started the first of these companies, and I know you've got the two companies going right now, and it's grown up and it's doing all these amazing things. But you started the first of these companies with your sister and business partner back in 1999 as a home-based candle making company. And so what was it like starting a business with your sister?
So, first of all, my sister and I are best friends, so we make really good business partners. And we started our company really as a hobby-based business, really making products, in our kitchen and sort of loading those up and taking them out to craft shows on the weekends, and learned a lot just about partnership, product development, marketing, selling, sales pitch, all of those things. So it really was something. It was a time where we were really able to kind of organically jump into starting a business and learning all the nuts and bolts of it.
So in the case of Sister Sky and your products, I understand that an experience with your son inspired you to research and learn more about the knowledge of Native American and indigenous cultures, specifically related to care products and kind of how we conceive of and make and produce them.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. I think some of the best companies, some of the best products are developed to really serve a purpose and solve a problem. And in our case, we were, tinkering around in our kitchen as a hobby, making soaps and lotions and candles. And as fate would have it, my son was born with severe eczema. And if you are familiar with eczema, you'll know eczema is an extremely frustrating condition. You have dry, inflamed skin, and just about everything you put on your skin is very irritating. So I was really wondering what ingredients were in the lotions that I was putting on his skin, and what were they, how were they having this reaction? It really got me to thinking about, what did we use before we had commercial products? What natural medicines from the earth and herbs did we use to heal? And I'd really thought a lot about just culture and tradition. Being a enrolled citizen of the Spokane tribe, I knew very, deeply that we had always had alternative healing plants that we had used. So I started thinking about how could I infuse that wisdom into the products. And I ended up creating a lotion, a very basic natural lotion that I tested on my son's skin condition, and it worked really well. And so that really became the anchor for Sister Sky and the product that we ended up developing and the story that we ended up telling, which is a lot of times with our products, we can really find purpose and use for those products if they're natural and they, help to soothe and heal skin.
And Sister Sky partnered with Eastern Washington University a little while back as we sponsor the United States Association of Small Business and Entrepreneurship. So I actually have some of your products here, including, I think I've got the lotion right here. Some of the products that we have sitting here. So many viewers of a show like this one are likely to be intrigued by the personal products base foundation of the company that started. So can you talk a little bit about growing the customer base? And I'm particularly curious about how you use trade shows in building the business and how you learned to use trade shows, to your best advantage.
Right. So when you have a product, there's many opportunities that you can go out and sort of pitch that product, whether you're pitching it consumer direct or to wholesale customers, stores that will end up buying your product and reselling it. So in our early days of getting the product out into the marketplace, we ended up packing up those same products and setting up booths at trade shows and, talking to buyers who were intrigued with the concept of our product, which is, we create natural bath and body care products inspired by Native American herbal wisdom. That's kind of a mouthful, but it's very unique. And it's a great way for us to showcase just the traditional wisdom of our culture. And so early on at those trade show events, we had to really figure out how to pitch. How do we explain that? How do we relay that information to a buyer? Somebody who says, because when a buyer comes up to your booth at a trade show, it really is about, tell me how unique your product is. And so it was a really charming way for us to learn how to pitch, how to explain very quickly in 10 seconds to a buyer who comes by why they should purchase Sister Sky and what is so unique about it.
So, and I know I've got part of your story on our packaging that we created, but I assume more of your story is actually on your website as well?
Correct. So sistersky.com, we talk a lot about sort of just the traditional herbs that we use, that we're a family-owned company, that we give back to tribal communities. That's a big part of why we built up our company, which was, how can we give back to our tribal communities? So a portion of sales are donated to Native nonprofits that contribute to education, health, and wellness in tribal communities.
So for anybody who's interested, any tips for how somebody can go into the trade show environment and make the most of that opportunity or that experience?
Well, I think it's important to be able to have samples. That was really big for us early on. If you have a product and you're able to allow somebody to experience it, I think that's key, because people really get to understand what your product is about, but they have a takeaway. I think that's so key. If you're able to allow a buyer or even a consumer at any given time a little takeaway, a little leave behind that you give them, and then you kind of wrap your story around that, you make a lasting impact. So you may not necessarily feel like you're going to get a sale at that moment, but you've made an impression and you've given somebody a sample with your website or your email or your phone number, and you would be surprised at the number of people who follow up. So it's always important, I think, to make that impression and allow them to have that experience.
Well, and you've actually spoken to my students at Eastern as well. And my memory is that, and I may not have this exactly right, but my memory is that you talked almost about a bit of an implicit social contract that emerges, that when you're giving somebody something, it becomes a bit of an, then they're going to give you something which happens to be some of their time, and you've got that short window of opportunity to make an impression on them at that point. Am I right?
Correct. It's an exchange. So if you're able to actually provide a sample, I think you're going to keep them there for that few seconds, that that a buyer almost feels, it's respectful and important to listen to what it is that you're pitching and what you're selling. So it's a respectful exchange by all means.
Now, how did you grow a market for these products? Where do you sell? Where do you distribute? But how did you grow the market base to build this from being a small business to being this major company?
So the products that we built, the products that we manufactured and marketed, we found a really helpful strategy for us, which was we wanted to figure out, how do we get this product into the market as a brand sampling program? So again, we were back to, how do you give people a preview of what your brand and your product's all about? Early on in our company, we decided that we would take the products that we made and that we would package them in smaller units and sell them to hotel resorts that were very much part of our culture. So as Native Americans, we have a very large and growing hospitality industry, a casino industry, and a resort industry. And so we ended up packaging our products as hotel amenity sizes. And we found a really good strategy in pitching those products nationwide to hotel resorts that really had a need for the product. So these tribes were building beautiful resorts, putting in native motif designs, colors, artwork, and it was just a natural fit that they would also have a need for a Native American product, a natural Native American product. And it really was a win-win situation. But ultimately, as a small business and as a small brand, we had the opportunity to now be nationally have a national distribution strategy that I don't think we would have really had the opportunity to do had we not found that specialty niche and had we not filled that gap.
Well, we've talked so many times, and I guess I've never really thought about the fact that in growing your business in these resort casinos, you've got this huge Native American hospitality industry. that was going to have shampoos and conditioners and things. They were going to have to, someone was going to have to supply that.
Yeah.
But when we talk about increasing value proposition for customers in entrepreneurship and building a business, for them, having products that aligned with who they are actually enhances the experience of being at that particular casino or resort versus just being at any hotel in a city someplace. So I can see how there's an additional win just beyond the quality of the products there for them.
Yes, and I think as we started really developing that product category, it became evident that not only was it advantageous for us as a small business, but tribes in themselves as an economic development strategy were very interested in partnering with smaller Native American companies. So it was part of their initiative as well. So, when you can find a good partnership like that, it benefits, it's definitely a win-win, and it benefits both parties. So that turned out to be a really important lesson for us as a small business. Find your partners, find where you fit a need, and it generally is, it can definitely be a win-win.
Now, how has COVID affected where you're distributing, how you're selling? Obviously COVID has dramatically affected tourism and hospitality.
Yes.
So how has that affected your company and your products in business distribution?
So like most small businesses, COVID literally had us figuring out, what do we do? The tourism, the hospitality industry, that obviously really, took a hit. And we never anticipated the disruption of supply chain, the ingredients, the packaging components that we needed for our product. We had to really focus. What were we going to do? We were going to have a hard time getting our products made. We were going to have a hard time getting ingredients and components. And so we really had to focus on getting our products, keeping our products for one distribution, which was retail sales via our website. It was key for us because that was our cash flow. And so we spent the last year not really pulling back distribution on hotels and brick and mortar wholesale outlets, and really focusing on just consumer direct, offering our products to our consumers via our website. That really had us changing our strategy, but I gotta say it really helped us think differently about how we reach our consumer. Sales ended up being higher than we actually anticipated because we took the time to really focus on building our community via social media. And in return, our community or our customers via social media told more of their friends about us. And so we were lucky and fortunate as a small business to have already had that website built and that brand presence, and we were just really able to build upon it.
Well, it's interesting because every successful entrepreneur that I talk to, they know the importance of cash flow.
Yeah.
But aspiring entrepreneurs, it's amazing how often they focus on revenue or profit, but they don't recognize that cash is king to the business, that cash flow is really critical.
Yes.
And so surviving something surprising like a COVID,
Yes.
that cash flow has to really govern where you go with that.
Because, honestly, can you ship product out and wait 30 or 60 days? Not during a pandemic. Can you ship product out consumer direct and, receive payment within 2 days? Those are the things that you really have to think about as a small business when everybody's belt is tightening, when everybody is really trying to figure out how do I keep the lights on during this time, which is completely unprecedented. But you ultimately have to think about cash and being able to keep it coming in so that you can keep moving forward.
And if people want to buy your products and experience these themselves, you've got the website.
Yes.
And then didn't you say you also have a physical location where they can actually see them or purchase them directly as well?
Yes, so you can purchase direct on our website, sistersky.com. And we also have a retail partner here in Spokane, and it is another Native American woman-owned company, and it's Modern Teepee.
Modern Teepee?
Yep, and they're located down at the Saranac.
Oh, fantastic.
Commons. Yeah, it's a beautiful retail spot down there with lots of local businesses.
Well, I'll have to get down and check that out myself.
Yeah.
Sounds fantastic. Now, I don't want to wrap this up without showing how far your company has come, and there's a whole other story to tell there. But can you talk a little bit about how your company has expanded, especially since 2012? Because you've really transcended just being a products-based business So can you talk just a little bit about where Sister Sky has come to now?
Sure. Sister Sky has diversified. We have a products division as well as a services division. We serve federal and tribal clients in providing training and technical assistance. And so a lot of people say, wow, you've gone from products to services, and how do you make that leap? I think ultimately our vision is anchored truly in serving tribal communities. So whether we're doing that through creating amazing products that really help display and share herbal wisdom of our culture, or whether we're working with federal clients to help native language revitalization or behavioral health integration into primary care and tribal communities, it is all anchored in how our company serves a greater purpose, which is contributing to education, health, and wellness in tribal communities.
So that's always your compass.
Yep.
So even
is.
though these two businesses are so different from one another, the purpose that's guiding them both is still the same.
It is. It is. And I think that's critical, because for us, building a business and diversifying and being sustainable is really getting in your lane and doing something that you absolutely excel at, but that you absolutely love. I think that's key.
Well, Monica, thank you for sharing your Sister Sky startup story with us today. And can you remind people really quickly where they can get your products at?
It is at www.sistersky.com or Modern Teepee down at the Saranac Commons.
And thank you for joining us today. I'll see you again on another episode with another great story of one of our entrepreneurial journeys from Spokane.